Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer of our network, where we currently have at least 25 live broadcasts each and every week. Our show today is The Corner Bookstore, and my friend, colleague, and co-host DIANN FLOYD has the day off. We have a fabulous guest backstage. This is her first time to the platform. I'm super excited to have her come out and share her story. Our topic today is removing the stigma of alcoholism. What does that even mean? Martha Carucci, our guest, is going to explore this with me a little bit more, but you know how it is when you see someone, maybe it's been you, maybe it's been me, over drinking, getting out of control, and we start labeling that person, and then, oh, we don't want anything to do with that person, or maybe we like that person being around because they're the life of the party, or maybe somebody is struggling at home in private. Maybe they look the role, they look the part, and you'd never know that they had anything going on in their life. Who are we to judge? Let's learn more about Martha Carucci and her story and what she's here to share today on the Corner Bookstore. Welcome, Martha. Nice to have you with us.
Hey, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Excited to have you as well. Where are you joining us from today?
So I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C.
Okay, that's a great area. My family's down in Sterling and Reston, so I love that area. So you heard what I said in the intro. An alcoholic, you know, people label people with these titles, and that can be really derogatory, painful. And who's to say what someone's doing is alcoholism or it's not? I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, but yet we do label people. And there are times when we want that person around us. We like how funny they are, how they make a fool of themselves. Haha, look at them. But yet all of this can be very painful. So you are an author, you're a blogger, and you're a speaker. And when it comes to this subject, you have your own personal share that you'll be telling us more about. So I'm going to spotlight you. Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, so I have been sober 10 years, and I have written 2 books about my journey through sobriety and recovery. The first book was called Sobrieties, and the second book is called Sobrieties 2, Make It a Double. There's a little bit of a humorous twist in all of my writing. And when I've been asked on certain interviews and shows, you know, why the humorous approach, it was simply because there were enough tears through the whole process of trying to get sober. I write my books and I write my blog and I speak because I really want alcoholism I really want to destigmatize it a little bit and have it be an open discussion, because I think there is still such a stigma around the disease that when people hear the word alcoholic, they're still conjuring up in their mind the vision of the bum or the homeless person on the street living under the bridge, you know, drinking out of a brown paper bag, and not necessarily someone who looks like me, you know, who went to an Ivy League school. I was a lobbyist for many years in DC. I currently run a foundation that helps women who are battling breast cancer, and I'm an alcoholic. And, you know, it's something that people don't necessarily think of. And I love what you said in the introduction is we have no idea what people are going through. We, in general, I think our society is very quick to judge, and they want to look at somebody who is always at the party, you know, slamming down the drinks. Maybe they're fun. I used to think I was a lot of fun, but I also said that I didn't have an off switch, or I had a broken off switch. So while I was a lobbyist in DC, going to all these dinners and fundraisers and events, I felt like my behavior was normal because I was surrounded by a lot of drinking. But when it came to the end of the night, and a lot of people were kind of mixing with water or, alternating their drinks with water. I didn't stop. Once I started, it was off to the races. And there's the broken off switch. So alcoholism is a progressive disease. And for me, it's something that got worse and worse. I left my lobbying career to stay home with my children, which is something I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to do. But I kind of lost myself during that time. And I was the mom in the neighborhood who was the first one to have a happy hour for, it was Tuesday, it was Arbor Day, it was whatever. And we could think of a reason to have celebratory drinks. And it just got to the point where 5 o'clock would come around and I couldn't wait to open that bottle of wine and pour a glass while I made dinner for my family. And before I knew it, one glass turned into two, and then it turned into the whole bottle. And I would hide that bottle in the recycling bin until my husband got home from work. And he would say, "Hey, do you want to open some wine with dinner?" And I'd say, "Great idea." And I would usually drink until I passed out and couldn't even, last until it was time to tuck my kids into bed, and wake up with a horrific hangover and swear I wasn't going to do it again. And by the middle of the afternoon, I had the great idea that a little hair of the dog would be helpful. And it was off to the races again. And this went on until, I found myself physically and emotionally and just everything dependent on where and when my next drink was coming from. So in 2012, I was in New York City on a girls' weekend, and my hands were just shaking at 11 in the morning until I got some alcohol into my system. And it was that night I sat with a couple of my best friends, and it took me hours to physically get the words out. But I said to them, I have a problem with alcohol. And they said, "We know." And I said, "Why didn't you say something or do something?" And they said, "Because you had to be the one to admit it and to realize it." And since then, it's been something like 3,782 days where I haven't had a drink, and I do my best to, move forward sober and present and here for my kids and here for my friends and my family, and try to help others who, as you said, some people may not know if they have a problem. Alcoholism is a self-diagnosed disease. So the number of people who reach out to me all the time, questioning either their own drinking or someone else's, is just, there are many people who question it, and I can't tell them. All I can share is, my experience and what has worked for me. And I'm always happy to talk to people if it will help them.
Congratulations on your sobriety and your journey. And thank you for your transparency and sharing what you just shared with us, because I know when you tell your story, or a person tells their story many times over, sometimes we go back and we're reliving part of it again. Maybe you were there that night in New York with your friends. So I know it can't be easy. So thank you.
Sure.
So
I'm happy to share it.
Thank you. And you touched on something that I think many of us, including me, we question ourselves. It could be working out. Hey, is 3 hours at the gym too much? Do I have a problem? Or are they new shoes that you have? These shoes? Oh no, I've had these. You have a shopping part. Like, there's all kinds of things through the course of our life that we make up stories for to justify. I know I was in the corporate world up until 2020, and we did a ton of entertaining. We were actually evaluated on how much entertaining we did. And, staying up with the clients, taking them to concerts and going to basketball games. We got rated on all these things, and there's alcohol in all those situations. And when you take a step back, when I left the corporate world, I was like, wow, that was a lot of alcohol. Like, you just get into these routines and you don't even realize it. So I guess my question for you is, you mentioned that people have reached out to you. What are they usually concerned about? That somebody else said something to them, or that, maybe they blacked out? Or what are some of the things that people are now questioning about their own behavior?
I think, it's both. It's both people questioning their own issues or possible issues, and someone that they care about. I just had someone reach out recently and say that, a very close friend of theirs, it's so hard for them to watch them spiraling down because they are blacking out, they're falling down, they're cutting their face. People have said things to this person one-on-one, but it's not sinking in. And the hard thing for me is that when I say to people, you can't make someone stop drinking. You can express your concern, you can give them options for getting help, but it sounds to me like this person is really in a place where they need like an intervention or someone to sit down with them and really say, you're at the point where your drinking is going to cause like serious harm to people. But yeah, I think everyone, whether it's alcoholism or whether it's, like you said, working out or being a workaholic or shopping addiction, the point of my books is really to kind of look at the power of choice in our lives. And that's what my new website that I just finished is marthacarucci.com. It's called The Sobering Power of Choice. And I actually just gave this talk to my son's high school. And, the power of choice in our lives is something that we don't often look at, and sometimes we don't understand. And again, back to what you were saying earlier about the judgment. A lot of times people want to judge us for our choices, and they have no idea whether, first of all, we had a choice. And second of all, maybe that choice was choosing between the lesser of two evils. So I talk to the kids about the choices that they're making now in high school can affect the rest of their lives. There's, this incredibly scary fentanyl crisis going on. And just before I spoke to the kids at the high school, another 17-year-old kid overdosed, honor student, didn't do drugs, didn't do anything. He thought he was taking Percocet for pain. It was laced with fentanyl, and he's dead. And you keep hearing stories about this. So kind of hammering into these kids, the choices that they make literally are life and death these days. I also spoke to a women-owned business group out on the West Coast, and there were mom-owned businesses. And, the idea is the power of choice in our lives as mothers. And, when I was a lobbyist, then when I stayed home, and then when now I run this foundation, there are issues that come up, and there are choices for everyone. There's a board meeting, but you have a sick kid, or your store needs to be open, but your child really needs something. I think no matter what, we go through periods in our lives that we are faced with decisions that can really affect how we go forward. And I am really blessed that I see now my alcoholism and how I handle it as a choice. In the beginning, I didn't. I thought that, it controlled everything in my life, and it did. But I believe that I have a choice before I pick up the first drink. I have resources, I have tools, I have friends, I have, a lot of resources at my disposal. But once I pick up that first drink, I believe that I surrender my power of choice to the alcohol. So whatever that is for the individual, it's really, I try to stress, look at whether this is something that you can control. Is this a choice that you have in your life? Are you making the right choice? Is it a really hard choice to make? And, sometimes it's just stressing to people that it's okay to ask for help, especially with alcoholism. I especially want these kids today to know that. And, hopefully everyone has a friend or two, or a therapist or a doctor or someone they can turn to and say, I'm a priest, whatever. I'm faced with a really difficult decision. I don't know what to do. I need some help. I need some guidance. But for me, it's about not surrendering the power of choice to either someone else, or in my case, something else, which is alcohol.
Wow, that's really powerful. Thank you. I want to say last week, the Diane Sawyer interview, and Matthew Perry sharing his journey. And the reason I bring it up, I thought it was really eye-opening in a number of ways. And this is my takeaway from the interview, that at 14, he was exposed to alcohol and drank an entire bottle and then wanted more. And then from there, as his career continued, again, my understanding, he didn't feel worthy. He didn't feel like he deserved it. He didn't have the confidence level. And so from alcohol went to pills and so on and so forth. So I guess my question for you is, knowing that alcoholism is a disease, are there some signs at an early age, like with Matthew Perry, wanting that whole bottle and then more at age 14? Are there some red flags that parents can look out for, as opposed to saying, oh, that's my boy just having some fun, or that's my girl, or wait a minute, this is something that looks like we better get some help right now?
Right. And the thing that you you hit the nail on the head with, Matthew Perry talked about going to that for not feeling enough. And for a lot of people, alcohol can give liquid courage. I know that when I was a lobbyist and I had to walk into a room full of strangers, it's something that nobody would have thought of me, but to have a little bit of liquid courage and alcohol and walk in and feel like, okay, now I can do this. When you take that away, when you take alcohol or working out or shopping or gambling or whatever your addiction is, you still have those issues inside of you to look at, in whether it's low self-esteem, low self-confidence, not worthy. And that's something that I think with any addiction, you have to really look at the core. It's not enough to just stop whatever the addiction is. And, I'm glad you brought up Matthew Perry, because there have been so many celebrities who have been very public about getting sober. And I think that, there are many ways to get sober. Certainly AA is one of them, but the anonymity piece, in my opinion, perpetuates the stigma. I feel like, I had been criticized, and I still am, among some groups that think that, this is a really private subject. I shouldn't be talking about it. Well, this is my journey. I can talk about it. I can talk about whatever I want, but as long as I don't affiliate myself with certain programs or certain whatever, but celebrities who would get sober and then say, AA saved my life, or this 12-step program, or this, whatever addiction treatment center, that was great. But if they relapsed and if they fell, it made it look really bad for the program. And so that's something that added to the stress for anonymity and, not affiliating yourself with a program. And I have a lot of respect for people who come out, like Matthew Perry, like others, who share their stories to show, that they're human. And, people who suffer from addictions and alcoholism, drug addictions, they may relapse, they may stumble, they may fall. And I remember saying to my friends, that were with me in New York City, early in sobriety, when it was really hard for me, I said, I don't think I can keep doing this. Like, I'm tired of white knuckling it. I'm tired of seeing all my friends out there drinking and feeling like I'm fighting it. So what happens, if I fall? What happens if I drink again? And they said, it's not about if you're going to drink again, you're human. It's about how you get back up. And I really think that's a message for life in general. We're human, we fall, we make mistakes, but it's about how you get back up.
Yeah, absolutely. I really admire you saying that. And Martha, when you think about the circle of friends you had back then in New York, has that circle changed as you've left the drinking world and you've been sober for 10 years?
It has changed a great deal, but the women who were with me in New York haven't changed. They're still there. And in fact, one of them texts me every single morning for 3,782 days, the same text, "Good morning, sunshine, how are you?" And that was what she said when I woke up in New York that morning. And there have been stories and magazine articles about it, the "Good morning, sunshine" text. And that's pretty amazing to have someone who checks in on you every day to make sure that, you're still sober and you're still fighting the fight. The circle of friends that, were the moms that I drank with in the neighborhood, that has changed quite a bit because they're still doing, what they were doing. And I really try to be careful to say that I have no judgment. There's nothing wrong with people who drink socially and have fun with happy hours or enjoy their wine, enjoy their cocktails. I can't do it, but for me, it's taken a long time before I could, in the first few years of my sobriety, I just couldn't even go out and be around it. It was too tempting. I would have people say to me very, very kindly and in a considerate way, "Hey, come to this, I won't drink either. In solidarity with you, I'll be sober too." And they didn't understand that just didn't matter to me. Like, all that mattered to me was that I was smelling the red wine. I was smelling the Chardonnay. I wanted it, and it didn't matter what anybody else was doing. But as you and I were talking a little bit before the show, there's this whole new world that has opened up, kind of the sober curious movement and the non-alcoholic or spirit-free zero proof world that has just taken off. There's a new bar that opened in DC called Binge Bar, and it's completely alcohol-free. A very good friend of mine has opened up an incredibly successful business in Old Town Alexandria called Umbrella Dry Drinks. And she's been featured in Rolling Stone magazine and Washingtonian magazine, and she cannot keep the products on the shelves. It's non-alcoholic beer, wine, and spirit-free, rum and tequila and whatever that you can make drinks with no alcohol or very low alcohol content. So it's not just people who are self-proclaimed alcoholics or recovering alcoholics. It's people who, maybe they are health conscious, maybe they're trying to lose weight, maybe they're pregnant, maybe they want to go out with friends and be the designated driver, but not be designated to just drink water all night. So people are looking at these new options. A lot of them are, they're made with completely natural herbal ingredients that are low calorie, low sugar. In the past, when you would go to a bar and ask for something spirit free, we used to call them mocktails. We're supposed to now call them spirit free cocktails. The bartender would just begrudgingly add like 8 kinds of juices, and it would be, enough to get you bouncing off the walls from the sugar. But now I did an article for a magazine, and I interviewed a lot of local bartenders about, what happens when someone does ask for a non-alcoholic drink. And they said, if you're a good mixologist and this is your talent, and this is your artistic, outlet, whether there's alcohol in it or not, you want to take pride to use the best ingredients. They're using homemade lavender simple syrup, and they're mixing it with different things. They treat each creation as its own piece of art. So it's really refreshing to be able to go out now and feel like I have a glass of something fun in my hand and participate. And I think that this movement is really taking shape in a lot more places. I actually went to an amazing restaurant in DC that had a non-alcoholic pairing for a 5-course meal. And I had never seen that before. So people are asking if they go to a restaurant and they don't see anything spirit-free on the drink menu. They're asking if they could, get some things in, if they could make them something. So I think the world is waking up a little bit to, I'm not saying people shouldn't drink. I'm just saying, give us some options for those of us who don't want to, for whatever the reason.
And this is exciting news. When you shared that with me backstage, I was like, oh my goodness, I was not familiar with this. It's fantastic. Several things I want to get to. We're going to take a commercial break, but I'd love to bring up your website right now. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Fantastic. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me one moment. Okay, and here we are. For people on the radio, we're at marthacarucci.com, which is MarthaCarucci.com. So Martha, just walk us through the website. Tell me where to go.
So this picture is at a bar from the article that I was doing, and an incredible bartender. The bar is called Hummingbird, and this guy Mason took me behind the bar and taught me how to make some spirit-free cocktails. And it's funny because when people see that picture, they're like, Martha, you've been sober 10 years and your picture is at a bar. And I said, yeah, because it doesn't mean that I can't go out and have fun. So that's another part of the message, is that there was a comment on the Today Show a couple months ago, and a bunch of us just reacted very strongly. I can't remember, Carson Daly it was. And they had a segment in the morning on mocktails, and they were making spirit-free drinks. And he was reading the cue cards, and he's like, wait, these have no alcohol? Well, what kind of fun is that? And it's just perpetuating that message that's associating you have to have alcohol to have fun. So I wrote, and a bunch of people wrote, and we kind of just said, hey, come and do some of these events that we're doing, and come to some of these sober curious bars and see how much fun we have without alcohol. Didn't hear back from Carson Daly, but we put it out there that, alcohol, non-alcoholic doesn't mean boring. So the sobering power of choice is, as I said, in this case, it's about my choosing to not pick up alcohol, because it's going to spiral me down to a very dark place that I don't want to be. So the website just goes through, it has my blogs, it has my books you can order, it has getting to me as a speaker through my agent. The new book on the right there, On the Rocks, I have a little chapter in it that a woman did a really neat look at other, women in drinking. And so I just am a contributing author to that. But Sobrieties, the blue book is my first book, and Sobrieties 2, Make It a Double, is the red book.
They're great titles, really.
Thank you.
I love it. So what have you learned in that chapter that you wrote, and in your experience, what have you learned about women and drinking? Is it more of something that's hidden that people might not be aware of?
I think that actually, like, women is the fastest growing group of those who are having a problem with alcohol. And the CDC has a number that is, I want to say 27,000 women, young women and girls every year who are dying from a alcohol related situation. So 27,000 women, it's a really scary number. COVID doesn't help anyone, didn't help anyone, because the opposite of addiction is connection. So for COVID to tell us that we need to be isolating, that's the worst thing for someone suffering from alcoholism or addiction, is isolation. So, during this time, people got really creative with Zoom and with having, meetings and fellowship online, where you could keep in touch with people. But it was really, really hard. And I think, women in drinking, it's just, there's so many social cues that if you look around at the grocery store and some of the wine labels, it's like Mommy's Little Helper or Mommy's Timeout. There's a blog that has God knows how many millions of followers, hundreds of thousands, called Mommy Needs Vodka. And I think some of what she writes is hilarious and spot on. I'm not criticizing it, but it's this message, that we get, that all the jokes about, that we deserve a drink at the end of the day, as a mom or as a woman, or it's a tough day and it's a reward. We're programmed socially to believe that alcohol is a reward that's earned for. And I know I thought that when I was opening that wine at 5 o'clock. I have 3 kids, all day. I so deserve this glass of wine. And for me, it's about, finding another reward that's better for me personally.
I really appreciate what you just said there. We're going to come back to your website in a moment. I think something that's also interesting, we had on an author earlier today. She specializes in children's books. And what she shared is that as adults, we really feel like we're owed something, like what you just described. I deserve this. I've earned this, whatever it is. And so we try to fill that void with whatever it might be. And what I found is people will give up one thing and replace it with something else that's dysfunctional. Well, at least I gave that up, but now XYZ. Like, we tell ourselves all of these stories. And her point was that when we fill up the emptiness, the void, with affirmations, with gratitude, with helping others, like what you're doing, we don't have that need for the sugar or the alcohol or the gambling. But yet at the same time, we are talking about diseases. It's not like somebody just said, oh, I want to go down this path. So what are your thoughts about that the disease versus the desire? Are they interrelated, or are they totally separate?
It's a great question. And I think, I could just see it with my alcoholism, that it is a progressive disease, that I became more and more dependent on having alcohol every day. My body needed it. It's funny that you say replacing it, because I went to total ice cream so I lost weight when I first gave up drinking, because I didn't have all the empty calories of the alcohol. But then I was replacing it with ice cream and like sugary things. And I thought, okay, well, at least I'm not drinking. So everything's about balance, right? I mean, it sounds so easy, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head with a really important thing there, that gratitude. Like, it sounds so almost so, cheesy, but one of the things that we do in recovery is make gratitude lists. And some of the women that I help, it's the first thing I'll say is, no matter how bad things are for you, there's got to be one thing that you can think of that you're grateful for. And sometimes it's having a roof over your head. Sometimes it's, having a friend to talk to. We have to sometimes dig deep. And when we focus on gratitude, it's really hard to go to a place of feeling unhappy and craving something else when we put ourselves in the position of being really grateful for the things that we do have.
Yeah, I love how you just shared that. And I'll just give a quick share. I was going to go to commercial, but forget the commercial. Sorry, sponsors. I'll give a quick share. So I've had ulcerative colitis for 30 years. And yesterday I went to gastroenterologist, a new one. And, I was there. People, I love your dress. I love your shoes. I love this. I love that. And I sat there in the waiting room. They take you from the one room to the other room. You just wait and wait. And I thought to myself, wow, people look at me and they go, oh, she has everything. But meanwhile, I have 16 inches of bleeding ulcers. And I said to myself, the only thing I need is my health. As long as I have my health, these shoes don't mean anything. I bought them years ago, but at the time they really did mean something. I had to have those red soled shoes, and we do these things to ourselves that it's just insane, but we don't realize it at the time. So I hope for people out there, whatever age you are, it's never too late to reassess what's really important. And it's never too late to get out there and help somebody else. And you're not only helping people through your work, but you also help people through your charity. And I think that's extremely important, because I don't know if there's a direct correlation between alcoholism or substance abuse and breast cancer. I don't know if there's any relation there, but so many women are being diagnosed every day with breast cancer. And there's that element, I would believe, of loneliness, of why me, or what did I do to deserve this, or did my choices get me to where I am? So I know that's a lot of information, but can you share, Martha, what is your experience in helping women in this area? What are some of the things that they share with you about how they're feeling?
Yeah, I think, the thing that really helps my own sobriety and my own gratitude is helping other people. And so I run a foundation that helps low income and uninsured women to get screened and treated for breast cancer. And they do cross paths once in a while. I had a woman who wrote to me on Facebook, and she's like, look, I follow you personally and your books and your writing about alcoholism, and I follow you through your foundation. And I just got, word from my doctor that my cancer has spread. And I'm really torn between wanting to drink and just live it up, while I can the rest of my life, or living the rest of my life sober and present. And do you have any thoughts? And I just sat back and I took a really deep breath, and I was like, wow, what do I say to this woman? And I said, after a little while, I was like, living it up can mean different things to different people. And to me right now, living it up means being present every moment with my kids and with my friends. And when I drank, I wasn't. Living it up is going to mean different things to you, and I can't tell you, what to do. But I just shared some things with her about how much better my life was sober. And I wouldn't trade it. And the women that I've been able to help have said to me that their life is 1,000 times better since they gave up drinking. So it's really hard, but I think being able to help other people gets us outside of our own mess. And I'm sure with your health issues and things, if someone were to come to you and say, hey, I was diagnosed with the same thing, what can you tell me? I would think you would feel better by knowing that your experience and going through something really hard helped another person. And to me, it's sad that there's so many people out there who are suffering in silence, that they either don't know where to go to get help, or they're afraid to admit it. Again, I think it's the stigma, they're like, they don't want to be labeled alcoholic. So I'm trying to show to people, it's not terrible. Like I'm an alcoholic. I'm doing great things. It doesn't mean my life is all sunshine and roses, but it would be a heck of a lot worse if I were to pick up a drink and go down that path again. So, I think just for anybody, sharing your experience, strength, and hope, as we say in recovery, is something that it makes me feel better to do, knowing that it maybe shed some light or a little bit of hope on some for someone else. And I have spoken to women who are incarcerated, women who are transitioning out of incarceration into, sober living units. And I'll never forget, they were really quiet. A lot of them didn't want to speak after I spoke. Some asked questions, but there was just one woman who just sat there really quietly. And at the end, I said, does anybody else want to say anything? I didn't want to put her on the spot. And she raised her hand. She's like, yeah, I just want to say you just gave me just one thing today. And I was like, what's that? And she said, hope. And that was more than I could ever ask for or, imagine giving someone. So I was really, really grateful. And it got me out of my own head.
That is brilliant. Congratulations. I love that. I love it. That's what it's all about. And I'll just share a very quick segue. I was giving a speech for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation, and I stood up and I said, hey, I got up at 3 this morning so I could eat, so I could get sick, so I could be here today, blah, blah, blah. I'm wearing a diaper right now. And it was the first time I ever spoke about it, and I was shaking and I was kind of mortified. And afterwards went to the bathroom, of course, and there was a young woman there, and she kept looking at me, and I could tell she was a patient. I could just see the way her face was. She didn't look well. And she said, you gave me a reason to live.
Oh, wow.
Which was huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And good for you, because you get what I'm saying, sharing something that's very painful. And by us being vulnerable, there's a reason why Brene Brown and her vulnerability are so popular. When we're vulnerable and we show people, look, I'm human, I've messed up, but I'm doing the best I can. It lets other people let their guard down and be vulnerable and open up to you and say, like, hey, thank you. I think I can give this a shot too. I can do it. So it's not always easy, but if it helps, I always say with my books, if it helped just one person, then it was worth it. And I know that it's helped more than one person. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're coming to the end of the show and I have a zillion more questions, but something I just want to get back to, you had touched on this, that many people, I shouldn't say many, but some group of people did not celebrate, and maybe that's the wrong word, but didn't celebrate your sobriety, questioned it. And you mentioned sometimes people are still questioning and making comments. Why do you think that is? Do you think that's fear because people don't want to look in the mirror at their own behavior?
I was just going to say, I think that a lot of people who react to my message don't want to look in the mirror. And I try to be really careful when I speak to places that, like, I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm not here to stand up and say to you, drinking is bad, don't drink. It's not about judgment. It's not about that. But I think the people who have a problem with my message don't want to look in the mirror at themselves. And it may be, like we talked about, some other addiction or addictive behavior that they're not proud of, or, they are worried about their own drinking and they know that they might need to tone it back or cut it, but I think it's something that I've had to remind myself, it's not me, it's them. And my message is just one of whatever you're going through. It's never too late to get help. It's never too late to change. So I think, God, if we could just all be a little better about not trying to judge each other when you don't know the whole story about what somebody's going through. So, just treat each other with a little bit of kindness. You have no idea what someone sitting next to you is going through.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that. And I shared with you backstage that I broke up with my friend Kendall Jackson, said goodbye to Kendall after 30 years, and wasn't sure what was going to happen. It's 28 days since I had a glass of Chardonnay. That was the only thing I drank since college. But I don't know why I was doing it, but I really do know why. I think it's because I hated myself because of the disease of ulcerative colitis. I always felt dirty and filled with shame. And so my point of even bringing it up is we do the things that we do for whatever the reasons are. And I feel like even with myself, we have to do that work to get to who we are, what our passion is, and what's holding us back from that. And what are those stories that we tell ourselves that really are sort of like roadblocks that we feel like we're safe. Oh, I'm safe back here. As long as I do this and that, I have my little security blanket. But yet that's not the truth. That's just what we tell ourselves, and people around us can see. And I think, to your point, as you start to change and evolve, there's some people going, whoa, I don't want it to have anything to do with her because I'm not changing. I like who I am. I'm staying just like this, right?
Exactly. Well, good for you. And I hope without Kendall, you realize that you're pretty amazing. Look at what you're doing. You're doing this show and using this platform to help people and share your experience. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And by the way, how can our audience help you with your foundation? Is there anything you're looking for from people to help you grow this? It's such a great cause.
We just had our biggest event of the year, the Walk to Bust Cancer, and our foundation is the National Breast Center Foundation. So you can Google us, National Breast Center Foundation, and we help low-income, uninsured women to get screened and treated for breast cancer.
Is this in a specific area, Martha?
We're in Alexandria, Virginia, but we have no geographic boundaries for the women that will help. But most of the women come from the DC metro area, which has one of the highest rates of breast cancer in the country, believe it or not.
Wow, fabulous work that you're doing there. Thank you so much. And also for your work as an author, for your books, to hire you as a speaker. How can somebody reach out and say, I want more Martha? What do I do?
They can just go on the website, marthacarucci.com. I think there is a little link there for speaking, and have a wonderful agent that can connect you with getting me to come speak wherever or virtually. So I'd love to be able to share my message.
Well, thank you again, Martha. And thank you, Rachel Bain, for referring you to the program. I really do honor and celebrate you. And I hope you'll come back and see us on our other shows as well, because we have different audiences watching different programs, and your message is so important.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn.
Thank you. Also, a quick question I have for you, for your friend that started the Umbrella.
Yeah, Umbrella Dry Drinks. She's amazing.
Umbrella Dry Drinks. Is there a website that we can...
Yeah, umbelladrydrinks.com, and she's all over social media. Her name is Sam Caston.
Okay, perfect. Can you put it in the private chat so I can share with people?
Sure.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you again, Martha. Please do go over to Martha's website, marthacarucci.com, and support her work. She's doing amazing things. And I want people to take this away from the show. Wherever you are in the world, whatever it is you're going through, I know you think you're the only person in the world going through this issue. Whatever your issue is, you're not. I promise you. Somebody is out there taking the steps, sharing their story. And if you're open to just reaching out or listening to someone else's story, I promise you it's going to help you in some way. Martha, anything you want to add to that?
Nope. I think that's a great summation. So thank you again for having me.
All right. Thank you again. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to each and every one of you who are watching us on the live or the replay. We really do appreciate you. Just a quick announcement for those of you who don't know, as of January, we're going to be live streaming from our website, usaglobaltv.com, which will also be available by USA Global TV and radio.com. We're bringing it all together. Yay. And we want you to feel comfortable sharing your stories. We have people from all over the world going through all kinds of things. And it is scary, but it's so liberating and empowering to know that you help change someone's life, that you help someone come out of the darkness, out of the shadows, and realize that they are worthy, they have value, and that's you. Thanks again. We'll be right back with the Film and Music Show. We look forward to seeing you there. Bye, Martha. Bye, everyone.